management of semi-natural areas, tools and machinery. The oldest method is to use fire. And fire has been used and still is used in many different countries. It also benefits different types of plants and species that only need this fire in order to have a habitat to reproduce and live in. On the other side, the slash and burn method, which has been used in many places, it also contributes to the climate change by carbon dioxide being brought into the atmosphere. So this method cannot be used anymore in the same extent as it had been used in previous old times. On this picture, you can see a man who is firing alongside a road in Nummi village in southern Finland in 1950s. Still in 1970s and 80s, it was common to burn fields after they had been harvested. So the grains were harvested and also all the straw was removed from the field, and what was left then, these 20 centimeters of straw, it was burned down on the fields and then contributed with ashes to the soil as a nutrient. Also this have stopped in Finland in 1980s. For a very long time, human has been using sight and sharpening stones. And there are many different ways how the sight can look like. And this is now a modern one. As you can see, the blade is also a short one. So this is then used to cut grass in stony areas, not in open flat fields. There was also different methods of using sight, and in Finland we also used to have a short, a long blade, but with a short wooden stick on the side. And by using that, it was used another technique. With this tool, you cut only on the first way when you hit. But in this older type of sight, you were cutting both to the right and to the left, so you were using your power, how to say, all the time, and nothing was empty moving at all. Still, there are people who in small areas who need cuttings are using a sight. And many semi-natural areas in Finland which have a lot of stones, if you don't want to graze them, then there is nearly only then a possibility to use a scythe, because usually you cannot move around with machinery in these very stony areas. Hand moving has lately become pretty popular, and there are groups of people in all neighboring countries to Finland that use a scythe. Literature about them and how to use them and what different types there are and so on are not that many. There is one book, the scythe book by David Tresemer, and then there is a Swedish book that actually is for free to download online, or you can buy it. And the name of that book translated would be then also the scythe book. And it is a very practical book, and it gives a good theoretical basis for you, and also practical tips on how to start up using it. It has also several photos, so you can have a look on those. There is a Swedish Facebook group, quite large, on sharing experience on using scythe. The smaller tools used are an axe, pruning shears, both small ones and big ones, and different types of saws. The billhook is really usable when working both with grazing, pasturing with animals and with clear cutting and restoration of semi-natural areas. Another Finnish tool is called raiva, and this tool looks like a scythe, but it's not one. So often when people buy this, they start to use it like hitting, but this is not a tool for hitting, but this is a tool for taking away very small growing trees that are of the thickness of your fingers, and you remove them by cutting upwards. So the movement of your hand should be you kind of take it straight down and you pull it straight upwards. It is cutting off the small tree, and of course it is leaving a pretty sharp end, but this one is very quickly actually then rotting in the floor of the forest, so it won't be a problem then, for example, with grazing animals afterwards. Of course, you could use also a clearing saw, and for larger areas and larger arm thick trees, then that is a really good tool to use. When we are putting up traditional fences that are built out of wood, then a spade, an iron rod and wedge axe could be used. The wedge axe, I don't know if this is really the right name, because this is again a tool that has been developed in Finland. It's kind of an iron rod inside of an iron tube, and at the end it is sharp, and with this tool you lift it up and hit down and it will split an arm thick or a little bit thicker wood into two pieces. It is very effective if the tree has been growing in a thick forest, so close to each other, so that it has been growing very straight up. Then it's very nice to use this tool. Sometimes you could actually, with two hits, you could split one of these smaller logs into parts. But if the tree has been turning around when it has been growing, then yeah, it's the same problem as you will have if you're using only an axe and some clings in between. When managing semi-natural grasslands, then always it is told that you should use something that is cutting the grass and not crossing it into pieces. Most of the modern new tools, they are actually ripping off the grass or crossing it, not cutting it. The old moving machine you can see here to the left, and it is very similar then the way it cuts the grass if you look on these modern movers. The only thing is that these modern ones that are not used by a tractor, they don't have the cutting wide, is not so wide. You can see that this horse machine that is to the left, this old one, then it's nearly twice as long, the cutting scissors, that compared to these modern ones. Here is used an old type of cutter, which is really cutting the grass, but also this one had only 1.5 meter long cutting area, and on my meadow these have been used, and we were then combining it with a scythe, so those places where we could not go with that machinery we were doing by hand. If, for example, many insects are living on the grass, and it's a good thing if you have nearby areas which not are cut, and then those which are cut, or used it in a way that you divide your meadow so that half you are cutting for grass and the other half you are pasturing, or you are cutting it only every second year. This, of course, depends much on what type of meadow you have. Do you have a dry one or you have a fresh one with a lot of grass? The dry one then have less grass, and that's really okay to cut it only every second year. And here you can see then actually the cutting part of this old hay mower. When the meadow is really nutrient poor, then it's not actually producing that much grass. And from here you can see also that cutting this area, there is not that much hay left to dry on the soil. In Finland, we don't have white storks. They are very rare. There has been only some very few, or one at least, nesting in Finland, but in the Baltic countries on the southern side of the Baltic Gulf, then there are a lot of white storks. And the semi-natural meadows is one place that they are fetching their food. They really like to eat different types of grasshoppers, and immediately as you are cutting a meadow, then you will also attract all the white storks to come and eat in the area. I had once on 4-hectare area more than 200 white storks that arrived. I am cutting my meadow pretty late up here in Northern Europe. It's in August, and most of the flowering plants have been flowering already. And when cutting at this time, then also the storks' offsprings are big enough, and they have started to gather into bigger flocks in order to get ready for leaving the country before the winter. And in that period, you can really see a lot of them on fields eating. In the Northern Europe, grasshoppers have never been a problem, as you have in many other countries closer up to the equator in Africa and also in Asia and some places. So the grasshoppers are really considered here as nice animals and respected animals, and people like them a lot. Quite opposite, it has been really a decline in the amount of grasshoppers since the amount of meadows have tremendously gone down. So all different types of grasshoppers are nice for people in Northern Europe. Many areas in Central Europe have a lot of mountains, and people also live and farm in these areas. And this is also the case, for example, in Norway. This is a machinery turning hay, so harrowing hay. After it has been cut, you are airing it up to get it to dry more faster. And this is this kind of a small tool again that could be used in small biotopes or in areas that where it's not possible to go with very big machinery. Steepy hills and also verges and for example sides of lakes or streams, rivers, it could also be used. There is a great deal of different kinds of small machinery, even if we see them less and less now up here in Northern Europe. I have gathered here different types of balers. and also other fun machinery. At the end there is one to collect manure from pastures. And if you are interested in these, you can open this PowerPoint and click on the links and check them out. It's so easy to take care of a semi-natural area. You just have to cut the grass and remove it. And yet, this is the most difficult thing to do. You have to have either own machinery, or there have to be somebody close nearby to you who have the machinery and who is willing to come to cut for you the grass, and then removing it may be really difficult in areas where there are not cattle at all, because in those areas also the farmers tend to have no machinery for making hay. So I have also not been that lucky. So in my area there are only industrial farms. Some even are keeping cattle, but they are so big that they are not doing any machinery services for anybody else. So their machinery are also so big and modern that they really need very flat areas to move alongside. And of course they are very expensive if they get broken as well. A semi-natural meadow, which is only being moved, it's up in Northern Europe, it's under the impact of frost. It means that the soil is lifting up and going down all the time, and very quickly it becomes very uneven if you are not plowing it in between, for example, which of course not is recommended to do, as we want to have these permanent grass areas. So I doesn't have also any cattle who could graze these areas, and there are not any nearby as well. So I had to do the second best thing, and I'm only cutting this. There was a great dispute about this machinery, because this machinery, it has a blade under, but actually it's not cutting, it's more crossing the grass than cutting it. This takes about 6 meters of grass when you use this. So in that way it's very quick and nice. It has 2 blades that are circulating under, and in one side they are a kind of a little bit sharp, but at the same time it's not as sharp as a cutting scissors. It's more blunt than that. If you look at the grass, it makes a very nice and short parts, which are decomposing on the meadow during the winter. So that's nice. It would be good food for soil microbes in the meadow. And if you look at the end, the cutting edge now of the grass, you can see that it's not perfectly cut, but it's not far from that either. So I have been pretty satisfied with this tool. The best would be, of course, if we could also remove the grass. But on the other side, when we are leaving this for decomposing, it looks like it's favoring orchids who like to grow on moss or like to have more moisture down on the top of the soil. But of course, then there are also those plants who don't like it, and those we will then have less of. On this picture, you can see that there is not that much grass in parts of the meadow that are coming from this cutting, because the production is pretty low. This is already quite a nice meadow with not too much nutrients. Anyway, in some parts, really the grass should be removed. It could be removed of course by hand, and the grass could be also composted, and it will turn very quickly into nice compost. But if you have 8 hectares, then it's pretty large area and not that easy to do that by hand. So again, you should need some kind of machinery to pick up this grass, which is very difficult when it has been crossed because the grass is so short now. The presentation is a video, and you can click open the presentation from your learning material and have a look on how it looks like when this big modern machinery is cutting the grass on the meadow. There are also movers with cylinders, and also such a machinery could be tried to use on semi-natural meadows. This kind of a small machinery is available. It's used a lot to cut grass under fences for animals in the pastures, but of course it could also be used for other purposes. And other type of also light and small machinery with cutting scissors in the front. In establishing meadows, the seeds are of course most important, and it's really difficult to get seeds from local native habitats. There have though been developed different kinds of seed collecting machineries. Here you have one example from the prairie in the United States, and there is in the presentation also a link to a video. There is another type, the green reaper, which is also collecting seeds from semi-natural meadows. Perhaps this was more intended to collect seeds from cultivated, on fields cultivated seeds, but it could be tried out also on other plants. As you can see, it's quite high up, so it doesn't take perhaps those plant seeds that are lower down. This machinery has been developed in Estonia, where they have been collecting then meadow seeds, and this have been used a lot then in collecting seeds from wild plants on Alvar meadows. Alvar meadows are meadows with a little soil on and limestone under. And on this picture you can then see how it is functioning. And you can set it for collecting seeds for high growing plants or for low growing plants. And here you can see how they are unloading the machinery and then collecting the seeds from donor sites, and afterwards they are emptying the seeds on this kind of plastic, and it's important to leave it there for some time so that insects that have also been collected have the time to remove themselves from this area. On picture 4 here you can see these seeds drying and insects escaping, and then after that then you are sieving the seeds and packaging them into bags, and then the seeds are ready for sowing. Here they have divided the seeds for this in order to be sown even, and they are sowing them then on restorated sites. This method was developed in Estonia, where they have been making restoration of really large meadow areas, both wooded meadow areas, but also totally open meadow areas and coastal meadows as well. And they wanted to use them local seeds. If you have a very small area you would like to move annually, then of course it can be done as it has always been done in hundreds of years, cutting with the scythe and using just a rake and transporting then your hay away. If you don't have cattle, you can always use this for mulching. It's a very nice material for making compost as well.